How did you get the nickname Trucker?
Because I drove truck for about 15 years before I started railroading, and that just kind of stuck with me when the first day I started railroading.
Okay. Alright, like what is the title of your work? Is it train engineer or do you have like another title of it?
Well, all the conductors and engineers are all called trainmen.
Okay.
You have your engineers, you have your conductors, but if you want to group them in, they're just called trainmen.
Okay.
Alright, so how long have you been working as a trainer?
10 years.
Okay.
What training, education, or background did you need for this job?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nope.
What are 3 important duties of your job?
3 important duties. Safety is number 1. Important duties. Question. Other than safe, just getting the train from point A to point B in a timely fashion. Other than that, I mean, important duties. Getting there, everything from point A to point B in one piece.
Do you wear a uniform or any specific dress for this job or just?
No.
Alright, so are there any tools or special equipment you use?
We have radios for communication between the engineer and conductor, air gauges when you have to air test the train, different safety things like in the wintertime we have ice cleats we put on our boots. Basically about it.
What do you enjoy most about your job?
Probably being the freedom, not having a boss looking over my shoulder all the time.
What is one thing you would change about your job if you could?
Probably the lousy hours, trying to get better hours.
What are those hours?
They differ. How to explain this? When you first get hired on, you're on what's called an extra board. That means you're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They call you, you better answer your phone because you got to go to work in 2 hours. And after you spend enough years and you get lucky enough to hold somewhat of a regular job, then it just depends on which direction what training you're taking. I mean, there's just so many different hours and different days off that there is no real regular schedule.
So, what's something unusual or funny that's happened on your job?
I don't know if I should say this or not. I don't want to mislead you kids, but it's kind of fun when somebody parks too close to the tracks. In the morning, you get to hit their car. I don't know if I should have probably said that, but it is kind of fun. I've taken out 5 in one shot.
Okay. What other jobs could you hold with your training or experience?
How do you mean by that? I mean, what other jobs? You mean on the railroad? Or
Anything.
in life, just from what my training experience on the railroad is?
Yes.
Nothing, we're railroaders.
Okay.
What's the difference between a conductor and an engineer?
Engineer is one that actually runs the train down the tracks. Conductor, he's up in the cab with the engineer, but when you stop to either pick up cars or set out cars on the train, the conductor is actually the one that has to get out on the ground, do the coupling, uncoupling, and all the switching on the train.
So he like switches the cars and stuff?
Yes.
Have ever been on a train that has had an accident?
Yes.
Can you explain that?
Going down through Des Moines a couple years ago, a couple of young kids were drag racing. Their first car made it, the second car didn't. Hit my locomotive right underneath my window and put the front engine in the front seat.
Was anyone like hurt in that?
No, luckily they got out without a scratch.
Wow.
It was a miracle.
Okay. Well, I guess it's already asked. So, how have trains like changed at all since when you started?
Actual trains, nothing, but the locomotives, we had a lot of old locomotives, lousy heat, no air conditioning, noisy, and recently they bought 12 brand new ones, which are all computer inside, for air conditioning, good heat, big captain's chairs, you know, and real comfy for sport.
Can you describe a typical day of a train engineer?
Phone rings, you show up at work in 2 hours from the time they call you. After getting your paperwork and job briefing on what you have to do that day, go out, inspect your locomotive, and get on it, and take a train from one town to another town. Get off and go to the hotel. Usually lasts about 12 hours.
What is the hardest part of being an engineer?
You have a lot of responsibility. I usually have, on the average, probably 10 to 15,000 ton of train behind me, which is 20 to 30 million pounds of freight. Trains a mile and a half long. In a train, say a mile and a half long, where the cars are coupled together, they always play. So when you do your math and you go 110 cars that can go, maybe this much slack and play in it, that means there's a lot of times when it can the cars can run into you and knock you off the track, or if you don't do things right, you can pull your train in half and rip your train actually in half. So there's a lot of concentration on where everything is. If you're a mile and a half long, your locomotive might be going uphill and the rear end of your train is going down a different hill. So just a lot of detail on what your train's made up of and where you are.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes. Thank
No
you very
problem.
much for coming.